All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to feminists only want equality when it's benefit to them. Let's jump in.
Men's jobs disappeared tomorrow, society would crumble. If women's jobs disappeared tomorrow, society would be fine.
Oh, really? Who's going to raise all the children?
Do you think society discriminates more against men or women, or do you think it's equal?
I think that they discriminate more against women, but I don't. That's not to say that men aren't discriminated against in some aspects.
Okay, how are women more discriminated against?
As I've said before, in my own personal experience and statistically,
Other than, can we do something other than just people say mean words to me? Because men, by the time they're 22, somebody said a mean word to them. Usually it's a woman. So anything other than somebody said something I don't like.
abortion bans.
Oh
Can
my
you
God.
name a law that controls what men can do?
She's gonna
and
die in that
access
hill, guys.
healthcare and the healthcare that men can access? Is there any laws that control men's healthcare access?
Well, if you want to talk about men's body, men are required to go into selective service. So if there is a wartime, they are required to be drafted.
Yeah, and I think that the draft should be abolished.
So you asked for a law, there's a law. There's a way that women's bodies aren't protected. There's a way men's bodies aren't protected.
There
No,
you
so
go.
it was actually, my question was different. My question was, can you name a law that restricts men's access to healthcare?
That restricts men's access to healthcare. No, not off the top of my head.
So there you go. That's one discriminatory
How are women
practice.
restricted access to healthcare? You can drive to another state and get an abortion.
Yeah, well, then that's also not taking into account like socioeconomic factors, right?
Okay,
Because not
of
every
course.
person has the ability or the funds.
Of course,
or
of
the
course,
time.
of course, of course. There's always an excuse, huh? Of course, guys. Of course. You know, it's the same guy. It's the same game.
To
No
be
responsibility,
able to just
man.
cross state lines to gain access. We shouldn't have different healthcare access in different states. Your geographical location should not determine your access
Sure.
to a human right.
Okay. Well,
Sure.
again, luckily for women, we have access to birth control, abstinence, and even you can even track your cycle and not get pregnant. So I think there's plenty of options beforehand that it really isn't an excuse if you have an unplanned pregnancy.
So actually, about 50% of unplanned pregnancies used protection.
Oh,
And so
no way.
That's just
Well, then you
incorrect.
No way. Guys, do you know how hard it is to get pregnant? You know how hard it is to get your woman pregnant? It's very hard. You know how you need to have in that kind of, you need to make sure you are in that time frame, that window, make sure she's fertile, she has not being on birth control, make sure your sperm is right in the money. Yeah, there's a lot of things. This is not even use of protection, guys. And she just said that protected sex. Well, she's unprotected 50% of what?
You have an unplanned pregnancy.
So actually, about 50% of unplanned pregnancies used
50% on unwanted pregnancy is because they have protection. Nah, this sound like a BS.
protection, and so that's just
Well,
an
then you
incorrect
should
statement.
learn to use it better.
That's
and
not
the
how
other
that
and
works.
the other thing
Yeah.
is after the kid's born, you could argue that it's an equally irresponsible move when men and women have unprotected sex or there's some problem with the birth control. Fine, equally irresponsible. But after the woman has more control. She has the right to she's the only one who gets to decide if she takes a plan B. She's the only one that gets to decide to put him on child support or alimony if they're married. Men don't have a right to their wallets after the kid is born.
Yeah, so pregnancy involves your body and your internal organs, and that is worth more than any money.
All right.
Yeah, but that's 9 months, a year. What about the rest of the time? What about 18 years after?
Right, and so then there's like 2 years after that you're breastfeeding, and then there's the unequal division of childcare and domestic labor. So it's so much more than 9 months. But to go back, we cannot minimize that 9 months. Having your body be not your own for 9 months is 9 months too long.
Yeah, but there are men dying when they go and do their jobs. And
They
they're
can get a
not
different job.
complaining about it.
They can get a different job.
No, because men understand that somebody has to do it.
Yeah, they don't have to do it.
They understand. Well,
Wow.
that's why it's
Yeah, guys.
admirable that-
Hey, electricians and plumbers. You know, those that goes to the sewer. You know, those that go and just cut woods and big trees. Yeah, you guys don't have to do it. You guys don't have to do it. You heard her. See, this is the delusion. They don't understand they don't even understand where the money comes from. They think that money is just a paper. They don't understand that money is just a representation of a value, of a currency. right? They don't understand this. So they think that men can simply just find another job and somehow the country will still work the same. They don't understand this.
They do it anyway, and they don't complain. And that's what I keep going back to is what feminists tend to want is they want all of the credit and they want to over exaggerate their problems.
So I would actually like to go back to the comparison you made of pregnancy and men going to work. Do you think those two things are the same?
War.
I think that a man going to a dangerous job is far worse than a woman being pregnant.
And do you think that the majority of
Far
men
far
work-
more dangerous, I'll say. That's more accurate. Better and good is like it's subjective, right?
Yeah, and as I've said before, I think that we should have better safety protocols and we should improve the safety of all workers. So I think that that should be addressed. But also, the majority of men,
but it isn't, right? Like, 'cause
right?
when
But are you
when we
arguing
go-
for it to be?
Here's the difference. Okay, so feminists have a tendency to think that if we complain, things will just happen, and I'm more realistic.
Yep.
Where I know that just because we say, oh, it should be better, well, it's not.
So
And men understand that because they have had to deal with that reality from a young age.
you recognize that the only reason you have a microphone and you have a show is because feminists complained because we wanted.
Oh
peace.
my
That's
God.
true.
That is not true. Wow. That is, oh wow, that's crazy, huh? That's crazy. The fact that she have a microphone and a place and all this stuff is because feminism, guys. Not because a guy built it. Not because men built it. It's because feminism.
Really is.
It's not true. There's female writers in the 1800s, 1700s,
and they had to write
and
under
1600s.
male pseudonyms.
It's not true.
It is true. It's
not true.
Well, you can say it's not true, but it's history
No,
and it's
no,
statistics.
that's
It is.
feminism propaganda.
It is. We used
There were
to not
women in
have a
power.
voice.
We had Cleopatra. We had women in power throughout all of history. There are examples of them.
When were
The
women?
first female property owner was in the 1600s in the United States.
When were women allowed to have their own bank accounts?
Women were allowed to have their own bank accounts in 19. What does that have to do with writing? You're changing the topic.
No, I'm not.
You're changing the topic because I'm right. They were
No.
allowed to write. They were.
You're the one who brought up female writers.
But okay,
that wasn't the question.
Go ahead. So, sometime in the 1900s, I can't remember the year.
Early on.
Yeah, it was like in the 1970s.
Yeah, around
is
there.
when women were allowed to have bank accounts. So when we're talking
And
about women,
what's happened since we got bank accounts?
What
We
has
own
happened?
80.
You
We
tell
own
me.
80% of the world's debt. There's a reason people did things the way they did.
you don't think that women should be able to have their own bank accounts?
I don't think they shouldn't have bank accounts. I think everyone should have the right, and they do. But there's a reason. I think when we look at the past, we have to look at the reason that people did things. And one of the reasons is women are very irresponsible with money. They own 80% of the world's debt, even though they make less money than men.
So did you know that the majority of household finances are regulated and controlled by women?
Yeah, I knew that. We make 80% of consumer buying decisions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's
what I said. They
that's her
spend.
point. Yeah. Oh my good doctor, that's her point. You just literally make her point.
That's what I said. They
Right,
spend
because-
money.
because
They spend money
households-
they don't have.
We do have the money.
Not
No.
anymore. I mean, the average woman out of college has $30,000 worth. How much debt do you have? You have to have six figures coming out of
I
med
do have
school.
6 figures
Yeah,
of debt, and
exactly.
the student
And the-
debt. Yeah, because
And
if
the
you,
thing is, in your profession, I mean, on average, women leave the medical profession when they have a kid or within 5 years. So odds are you won't pay it off. And it makes, I'm not saying you personally, I hope you do, right? I'm not wishing it one way or another, but statistically, women make their debt someone else's problem.
men do the same thing.
No, they don't. So they looked at women paying off their debt and men paying off their college debt, and men have been making payments towards it the last 5 years, and women haven't.
So it's funny because you just mentioned
Yeah,
how
wow.
women will.
Wow, she cannot, bro. She's not ready to even listen. She's not even willing to listen. I mean, at this point, the propaganda is so strong. But this is good, right? Because we can see how the raw feminism mindset just works or moved around the Western world. And this is perfect.
Leave their careers because they have to take care of children, and that probably plays a large role into why they're not able to pay back their student debt compared to men who continue to be a part of the workforce even after they have children. Do you see how those two
No.
things might be correlated?
No, because women aren't having kids anymore. That would have
We
been the
are.
case, maybe the case before, but now they're not really having children.
We are still having children.
Nah.
That's an incorrect
On
statement.
average, it's like 1.5 now. So, I mean, you have one kid, you can put it in daycare, you can still work.
You can put it in daycare.
Yeah.
Sorry, his or her.
Yeah. See, and this is the problem is like when we see people as commodities instead of actual people, like that's where we run into this thing of like, I don't care how you feel.
But you're in favor of deleting little thingies, man. Like you're in favor of deleting. Your argument for this and starting at the beginning of the video was healthcare choice, or whatever you call it. And the first thing you said is about deleting kids. What about their life? Are you seeing them as commodities?
You make
They
stupid
contradict
decisions
themselves.
instead of taking a nuanced perspective and the complexity of the human experience and recognizing that there are so many things that contribute into these cherry-picked statistics.
Well, you think that the world owes you understanding, and it doesn't.
I think that it does. I think that we owe everybody understanding.
Nah.
I think that in order for me, so you know what? I think that this is something we need to clarify.
Yeah, go ahead.
I partake in these conversations because I want a better world. I develop my opinions based on how I think or based on what I think is going to improve the human condition and improve people's quality of life. Why do you take part in these conversations?
I like to report on what's going on.
Okay, so you have no desire to improve the world and to be like an advocate for change and progression.
It would be nice, but I don't expect it.
See, and for me, one of my favorite quotes is the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And you can
And
call
my
me a
Oh, let's just give her a cookie for that. Yeah, let's just give her a cookie for that. Huh? What do you guys think? Let's just hey teacher, did I say the right thing, teacher? Did I say? Oh my god, this is so pathetic, man. Very pathetic, by the way. She's being immature about the conversation. She's still in college mindset. She's still catering to a lot of her friends in college kind of thing. Like, lady, this is not how things work. This is not how things work. You're about to find out quick. Listen, guys. In the 90s, early 2000s, feminism was a very good thing. It was the best thing ever. Now, look at that. She's not in a good position right now. Remember, she's gonna be a doctor. She's gonna go through this profession. Then she had to look at herself here and say, "What the hell I was thinking?" Because the problem is when you're in college, you're extremely radicalized. I would say. It takes some time for you to understand the world, and all those ideas fade away, and then you start seeing the world for what it is. She's going through that process. But she doesn't understand what life is all about. She doesn't.
dreamer.
They're the ones who do not.
I mean, historically, you're wrong.
I don't think so.
Martin Luther King had a dream, didn't he?
Okay, but how many guys tried to be Martin Luther King and failed? I'm not
Right.
saying there
And
aren't
that's
people,
a societal issue because we resist progression, and you're one of the people who is allowing society to resist progression instead of
Oh.
allowing progression to happen.
How am
instead
I
of-
allowing society to? What does that even mean?
yeah, so you
Okay, no, go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, because you say, I see the reality right now and I report on the reality right now. And when I say, yeah, we should recognize what's happening now and improve on it, you say, oh, men are dying in the workplace. And I'm like, okay, let's address that. Let's see why they're doing that. Let's see how we can improve on that. And then you're like, yeah, that's not realistic. I live in reality. Where you see how I am advocating for progression. I'm advocating for improvement. Where you're just like, yeah, you know what? That's not the world we live in. And I don't have any idea or any desire to improve on the shitty statistics that I constantly report on.
Yeah, so I think that sounds nice, but again, it doesn't change the reality of the situation. So you saying something on a podcast doesn't change the amount of men that die every year in a crab fishing boat. But what I like to do is be as accurate as I possibly can. And that is why I say that women do not do as useful or as needed jobs in society as men do. If men's jobs disappeared tomorrow, society would crumble. If women's jobs disappeared tomorrow, society would be fine.
Oh, really? Who's going to raise all the children?
Women aren't even raising their own kids. They're in daycare.
That's actually
They're in
incorrect.
daycare and public school.
No.
It's $1 billion industry.
It is a $1 billion industry,
Yeah.
but statistically, women have the majority of childcare burden, and not a lot of people can afford daycare nowadays.
Well, who is the kid spending the most time with if the mom's at work? Most mothers work nowadays. So the kid is spending more time at school or at daycare.
Yeah,
Because
or
usually
with
school gets
extended
out
family.
at like 2:30. It's not the norm. People don't really have extended family. School gets out at 2:30 or 3. They go to daycare for 2 or 3 hours.
What about before school? What about before daycare? Because a lot of times,
Okay, like
especially in that
45
first
minutes in the morning.
no, like the first 2 years of life at least.
Oh
people aren't
wow,
sending
she had to go through
newborns
that.
and,
Wow.
like
not
Her argument is that the two first years of the baby, and then she already admitted that she will probably put her baby at 3 years old or 2 years old in a daycare. Wow, this is crazy. This is not, of course, this is not healthy for the baby because the baby can develop some kind of detachment trauma. Yeah, but she's already in the mindset that she's gonna put her own baby in a daycare.
Not uncommon.
No, it's not uncommon, but it's also
my sister works at a daycare. They get newborns like
Yeah.
within the first couple
right
months
but
all the
we're
time.
talking about like populations, right? We're talking about like statistics, and the majority of people are not
Can I look
sending
up the
their
average age? Do you care if I look? I'm just
No, you can
curious.
look it
What
up.
is the average age kids go in daycare?
No, that's
I
not-
actually don't know the answer to that question.
that wouldn't be the
Kids.
question that I would ask, but I'm curious what that answer is.
Okay, I'm just curious. We
Passive aggressive,
recommend
huh?
kids start daycare as early as 6 weeks old. Doesn't give me an average. Just says kids can start daycare as early as 6 weeks. That's all I got.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, that would because that wouldn't
Yeah,
be the question
yeah,
that I
I
would
know.
Google.
Go ahead.
Like it would be because, right? We're talking about breastfeeding. We're talking about like bonding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things, like especially in the first 2 to 6 months of life, at least,
Mm-hmm.
like women bear the majority of that labor.
Sure, but I say so what?
I could say that to any-
men bear the majority of labor of running society for a lifetime.
And
On average, women have 1 to 2 kids. So okay, you could say that's 4 years. Men work 50 in a difficult job that gives us the food that we have, the chairs we're sitting on, and the microphone we're talking in.
And who set that system up?
You should say thank you. Men did. Thank God for them.
No, you seem to have a problem with the
No,
amount
we
that
don't.
men work and the
You don't.
responsibility that
I
men
don't.
bear. And so you're
I don't have a problem with it. I'm acknowledging what it is, and women should be thankful to men for doing it instead of complaining that they're not doing enough to make women's lives comfortable. We live in one of the most privileged times to be a woman ever. I mean, you have even the fact that you're saying the biggest problem is that they have to raise their kids in the early years. You know how privileged that is? I mean, you have the option to put them in daycare. You have the option to delay motherhood. They made IVF for us. They gave you birth. Like, we have so many choices now. And we're still going to say they're not doing enough? That's bullshit.
Do you know
Damn.
how much work it takes to raise children?
I'm one of 10.
Yeah, so you should
I'm
be
one
more.
of 10
Okay,
kids.
so here's my next question: Are your parents still married?
Yeah.
And wasn't your mom like a feminist on the UN who fought for women's rights at a global level?
Me and my mom don't agree on everything. What's your point?
Yeah, that she had 9 children and she's happily married as a feminist. So it seems like you should be fully aware and
She's
fully
not a feminist. She took me to Sarah Palin rallies when I was a kid.
Okay,
I went to like pro-life rallies when I was 12.
yeah, I mean
This
they're
didn't come out of nowhere.
right.
Yeah.
Also did
Wow,
advocate
she
on
didn't do. She tried to do her little digging. You know what I'm saying? It's not. It's that was bad, bro. Lady, that was nah. Now you're taking the L.
global level for like women's opportunities. So
Yeah,
it
and I
seems
don't,
like you should be fully.
Here's the thing: the internet only has half of that story, and
Usually
I
does.
can't. Yeah, I can't tell the full one, just because it's not my place. So I can't really use that as an. I'm telling you, you're wrong though. That's not. If you had the full story, I just can't talk about it here.
Yeah, you
That's
say
the-
that a lot when people bring up your family, which is fine. But my
Oh.
main point is that you
You're losing-
are not
you're losing the
ignorant
argument.
to these ideas. You are not ignorant to these arguments. Like you, on a global and personal level, like are aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
So to say who cares, like your mom cares, to say who cares, a lot of us care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it takes a lot of strength to care. And I think that it actually, to say, oh, I don't care, stop complaining, that's the easy way out. I don't want to take the easy way out. I think that being passionate about empathy is really like the strength. It takes strength to be sensitive. It takes strength to be vulnerable and transparent. I think that it's really easy, and it's the easy way out to just be callous and to say we can't make change and I don't care about your feelings.
Okay, well, again, you can say that, but it doesn't change the reality of the world. And the thing is, if you want to be in a man's world, then be in it. And what women try to do is they
Change
go
it.
into a man's world and tell them how it should be different.
Yeah, because as you've recognized,
Even though they've done none of
it
the
seems
work,
like you are
even
you
though they've done
interviewing
the
me, or
work,
are we?
even though they've done none of the work of building the society. But go ahead, sorry.
I would argue that our society would be better off if we did have a part in building it. Our society has been stagnated and has been held back because women have been held back.
Wow.
Imagine the prosperity and imagine the opportunity that the world would have if women weren't held back. and
She's
women
using
weren't-
prosperity. She doesn't even understand where prosperity comes from. It comes from resources. Who's the one giving resources? Just give them an island. Guys, they just need to. I still vote for just giving them an island, and I'll just give them the resources too. Just let them maintain it, but no help. Give them the resources, give them the machinery, give them everything. No help. See how it happens. See what happens after that.
stagnated, and you continuously complain about these things that men have to endure, and then simultaneously call it a men's world that women should be grateful to be a part of, but we should also be sensitive towards the things that they've built that are detrimental to themselves.
So what do you think men did historically? Like, what do you think their jobs were? Like 1800s, what were your choices as a man to do as a job? Because, you always talk about how women were held back historically. So I'm asking, like, what was life like back then?
Well, women had to stay home,
Hey,
and men
oh,
had
you
to
see
do
what's crazy?
all of the jobs.
Pearlie asked her, what do you think men jobs were back in the 1800s? And she started with women. She has to start with women or woman, anything female to just qualify the answer. You see how she does that? That's crazy, man.
Because they didn't allow women to help them.
What were their jobs that they did? What were the most common methods of employment back then?
I mean, what do you mean? I mean, it's going to be construction, it's going to be medicine, it's going to be food production, it's going to be factories, it's going like the same thing that runs all of society.
So they had three choices: coal miner, farmer, factory worker.
Nothing else happened in society in the
I'm not
1800s.
saying nothing else. That was the majority of how people were employed. So you guys have this like rewritten history where you guys think that men just had these glamorous, fun jobs, but men did the difficult job. Men know that they didn't enjoy their jobs. Do you think any guy is going to a coal mine and saying, "Wow, this is my passion"?
And again, who set that system up?
It's not about who set it up. It's how would the system run without it. They need coal. At the time, they needed coal. Like the same way now, somebody has to build the buildings. Somebody has to get the food. Otherwise, society does not run.
Correct. And we're better off when women participate and when women are able to help men. Like
Wow, she's
we talk
delusional,
about
guys.
all of these like detrimental aspects
I don't think she really understands this.
of these harmful industries. And arguably, if we cared about how people felt, we were compassionate towards their experience, we would put more time and energy to improving these harmful industries. And if women had been allowed to enter into these industries earlier, you could argue that they would be safer industries because we have empathy and we want to value progression and we want to recognize problems and address them. We don't just see a problem and say, hey, that's a problem, and then sit on it. Like, no, you recognize a problem, you recognize what causes it, and you fix it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I told you about the
Said no woman ever. Said no woman ever. Yeah, I'm gonna identify a problem and then fix it. Yeah, like we see. I will admit there might be a little bit of bias in this channel for a lot of these videos that we watch, but we see a lot of interviews. We watch a lot of interviews, and accountability is not something that is in female nature. They do have the capability, guys. They have the capability to do a lot of things, right? Rightly so. However, it's just that fact of just admitting accountability, that it's just really, it's like a needed energy to go through this world, you know? And she's saying like, she's talking like a guy. Which, looking at a problem, identifying a problem, looking for a solution for that problem and fixing it, it's a male trait. Because that's what we do. We just fix problems.
Crab fishing today. What are you going to do now?
As I said, that's not my job. There are people who
so
are
you're
on.
doing the same
Excuse me,
thing.
if I
Right,
could
okay.
please speak.
Go ahead.
As I've said before, there are people on safety committees. There are people on workers' unions. There are people whose jobs are dedicated to worker safety. So if you're very passionate about that, you should probably invite one of them to sit down in the studio and ask them that question.
Okay, so nothing? You're not going to do
Because
anything
that's not
about
my
it? Okay.
job.
I'm just clarifying you're doing the same thing.
No, because I'm more than happy to recognize that it's a problem that should be addressed by somebody whose specialty it is to address that problem.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. This was
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Wow, you said so much there. Wow. Hey, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like always, guys, I will see you in the next one.